Make sure you have your 1.3b, what is density notes. So by the end of this, you'll be able to say, I can define density, and I can compare the densities of different objects. And your vocabulary is density. So let's first look at the definition of density. What is density? So density is a measure of how close the atoms are to one another. So let's look at the atoms and figure out which one's low and high. So down here it says low, and this one says high. And you can see that for this object that has low density, its atoms are far apart. And the one that has high density, the atoms are really close together. So if we compare densities to different objects, if you combine these substances that have different densities, the less dense substance will float and the more dense substance will sink. Another way you can think about density is saying that it's lighter. So something that's less dense is going to be lighter, and something that is more dense is going to be heavier. So if we look at our example over here, we've got a cork and a rock with water. So the cork is floating and the rock is sinking. So which one is less dense or lighter than the water? Which one is more dense or more heavy than the water? And don't forget to fill this in on your notes, the less dense, this right here in red. All right, so let's look at the answer to that. So the cork is floating right here. So it is less dense than the water. And the rock is sinking, so it's more dense than the water. And if we look at the molecules, so the molecules or the atoms, for the cork probably look something like this. They're probably pretty far apart, right? Because that's what it looks like if something has a low density. And then the atoms of the rock probably look like something like this, really, really close together, because that's what higher density or heavier things look. All right, so in summary, density is a measure of how close the atoms are to one another. Less dense objects will float, or you can think about it as lighter things will float. And then more dense objects will sink, or heavier objects will sink.